Today I am reviewing another dive piece from a little known brand because I know that you guys love your divers, and I think that this one stands out as a little bit more unique, special and just generally different than every other Submariner looking watch. Of course, as usual, we're not going to get into any fluff, just where the watch gets things right, where it stumbles, and whether or not it's worth your money. And with that, if you learned something new or just enjoy the video, please do hit that like and sub button so other watch nerds can see it too. It genuinely helps. Now let's jump right in. As I unbox the watch, and quick heads up, it is a sponsored review. I get to keep the watch, but don't worry, I ensure I have full freedom of speech and creative liberties, etc. Anyways, this is the Borealis Porto Covo. Now, to reiterate, the main reason I actually picked this watch is just because it does stand out from your usual Submariner lookalike. The way it's finished, the stacked, almost multi-layer dial, the bracelet design they use, and just generally the whole thing is something fresh. There are, however, a handful of letdowns, as always, which I'll get into as we go, so keep that in mind. Also, very quickly, I am currently doing a giveaway when I hit 15k subs, and we are so close right now. All you have to do is like, sub, and comment the hidden message down below. It really is appreciated. Anyways, to start us off, the Porto Covo on wrist behaves like a proper tall diver. It is planted, well balanced, and very readable. It is not a thin watch, however, so if 37-38mm dive watches with a 10mm thickness are your thing, like me, it is a little bit big. But for larger wristed lads, or just guys that prefer bigger watches, the proportionings are decent and the weight is balanced nicely, so it's just an issue of size for me. Now, something unique I have never seen on another watch in my mind, at least anywhere near this price range, is how three-dimensional that dial is, and that is because quite literally the indices, they're not just applied, they are like standing on stalks. On top of that, the dial itself has some form of texturing I'd assume to maybe be pressed, though in my opinion that would look better as a matte or glossy flat dial, just because the indices again already adds a very in-depth three-dimensional look. These indices, however, are a positive and a little bit of a negative because the hands actually go underneath the indices. So the indices are very legible, but then the hands aren't very legible, so it sort of cancels out the positives there and just makes it whatever. As for its use case as a diver, this watch you just don't have to baby. The sapphire crystal shrugs off scuffs, the bezel insert is tight, the 300 m water resistance means it's fine anywhere near or in the water, and the screw down crown looks more than tight enough. This lets you treat the watch, of course, as its intended purpose, which is not having to worry about it, being able to properly roughhouse it, get it underwater, and just not worry at all, which is exactly what you want. However, I will say for the ceramic bezel, it's a bit too stiff for me, and unidirectional 120 click, I definitely prefer 60 click and smoother. Plus, on top of all of that, the grip isn't particularly the best, and the bezel also does have a sizable margin of error too. So though the bezel is at least a nice addition, and it looks very attractive, it is ceramic and such, I don't think it's particularly well done. As for the movement, we have old reliable, the Miyota 9039. This is a no-date, high-beat, hacking and hand-windable, easy to regulate and easy to service movement, which has a smooth sweep, is reliable and thin, and is just a no-drama movement, which is exactly what you want in a daily diver like this. Now, a big part of why this watch stands out is the whole watch is one finishing type, bracelet and case. Think more like bead or sandblasted rather than brushed or polished. It diffuses easily, hides any small scratches very well, and does give that very cohesive tooly vibe, which is good because, you know, tidy and uniform and all, but realistically speaking, at least from my point of view, the finishing is kind of boring and very basic, so it does make the watch look and feel a tad less premium than something with brushing and chamfers and polishing and such, in my opinion. Now the bracelet, well, that's where I'm a little bit split on this watch. Because yeah, it drapes very nicely and it is very comfortable on the wrist, but that's specifically because they are pretty loosely done links. And that same looseness makes it feel less impressive than some rivals. So just not as premium to the touch basically. The clasp is good though, and it has a nice on the go micro adjustment system, which is lovely. I'm glad they didn't cut corners there because it makes such a huge difference in the enjoyability of wearing the watch. So who do I think it's for? Well, if you want a proper diver that isn't a clone with good materials, clean finishing, and a dial that looks layered in normal light, this makes sense. If bezels are your love language, or you like unique or highly done finishing, or of course if you have small wrists like me, this probably isn't your piece. Overall though, my verdict is that the Porto Covo is a good quality watch for the money, considering that it is only 300 Great British pounds and has some pretty good specs, at least on paper. It feels different in a sea of samey looking divers. The finishing is honest and tidy, and the dial has character, but the trade-offs are just very simple. Stiff bezel that has too much wiggle room, and a bracelet tuned for comfort more than a premium and high-end feel. For me, it is just a little bit thick as well because it's built kind of like a tank. Like, let's say I put this on my wrist here. You can see that that looks pretty huge, and I don't even have that small wrists. But then again, that's also because I just prefer smaller wearing watches, so, you know, take of it what you will. That said, if the design talks to you, you're getting something robust, well enough made, and great value in terms of specs. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video or it helped you make a decision at all on the watch, please do like and sub because it takes you 3 seconds, it literally costs you nothing, and it helps me out a vast degree. And I am also interested in your takes on this. Would you say that it's comfort first? Would you say that you're not a fan of the bracelet and the finishing because they are so basic? Or do you think, like I can see, how that's sort of a positive because it makes it very versatile and very daily and not too stand out? I know personally I'm not huge on the type of finishing and the bezel and the dial. It's just not a watch for me, but objectively on paper it is pretty damn good for the money. With that said though, never forget, time keeps ticking, so use the time you have wisely.